I have a problem. I have noticed that at several points during the past 2 semesters, I have had no idea what the heck my peers were saying or talking about. Social media has helped slang evolve so rapidly to the point where me, an avid Twitter user, can't even keep up with all the slang. I was having to search up what terms meant every day, terms that I was not only seeing on Twitter, but then hearing people use in my everyday life. So I decided it's finally time for me to do some research and figure out if I'm the only one who doesn't know what the heck is going on most of the time. That brings me to the first segment of this project, the research. Okay, now I have been on Twitter for hours, but I promise it was research. I have found 6 slang terms that I want to see if people know. Now these are all common slang words that I've seen on Twitter at least within the past week. And they're terms that I believe have not been initiated yet into regular American culture and language. So the first word I chose is uwu. Defined by Urban Dictionary, uwu is a term meant to mean a feeling of too much cuteness or an overload of joy. It is also similarly seen as a face expressing a cute emotion. The next term I chose was the word stan. This word is a combination of the 2 words stalker and fan, meaning a person who really supports someone almost to an obsessive extent. The third term / phrase I chose is clap back. A clap back is basically a comeback with a more sassy attitude that goes along with it. The fourth term is the word slaps. This means it is really good music, it's still relevant, things like that. The fifth term I used is wig, particularly the phrase wig snatched. This phrase meaning surprise, shook. It's basically when something crazy happens, your wig is snatched. And lastly, the 6th and final term I chose was locals. Locals basically refers to uncool people, normal people, people who follow the status quo.
Okay, I have completed the creation of the survey. Firstly, I asked them if they use Twitter. Secondly, their age, and then I go through each of the terms I just mentioned and ask firstly if they've heard or read the term before, and secondly, if they know the meaning of the term.
Alrighty, so now it is time for me to send out this survey. Fingers crossed, people respond. Firstly, before I talk about what I found in the survey, let's talk about who took the survey. So 176 people took this modern language poll. 88 people who use Twitter and 88 people who do not. These people were between the ages of 16 and 99 years old. And for the most part, participants were either from California or Pennsylvania. Now, one of my favorite parts of releasing this survey thus far was the fact that my aunt shared it to her Facebook page. So I got to see how people around her age and from her generation reacted to these new slang terms. There were a lot of amazing comments, but here are just a few of them that I thought I should feature. And all this time I thought I was woke. Well, that was depressing. I think I'm boring. I know other slang. I did. I failed. I'm old. Out of curiosity, ask her if she knows what gear or grok means. And lastly, my favorite 2 comments left by both of my aunts. I sure hope I don't get wig swapped or slapped by the locals, LOL. Clap back at ya. Just pure gold. So now let's get into the findings from this research. So the first term, and probably the most obscure, uwu. 40% of people reported to having heard or read the term uwu before. Second, for the term stan, 55% of people reported to have read or heard the term stan before. Now, the third term, clapback. About 75% of people reported to having heard or read the term clapback. Next, we have the term slaps. About 60% of people reported to having read or heard the phrase slaps before. Next, the phrase wig snatched. Around 60% of people reported to having heard or read the phrase wig snatched.
And the last word or term, locals.
45% of people reported to having read or heard the term locals.
One of the most significant findings from the research I've done through this survey is the correlation between these slang words and age. I assigned equal point values to each of the questions that I asked and thus obtained a score for each person. Then I separated my data into 3 subgroups. On average, people below the age of 30 scored 77%, people between the ages of 30 and 55 scored 28%, and people over the age of 55 scored an average of 19%. As you can see from the graph, if you're below the age of 30, you are way more likely to have experience with these slang terms. If you're between the ages of 30 and 55, the likelihood of you knowing those terms goes way down, and by the time you are over 55, you hardly know any of them. Okay, so now we know. I am not the only one who doesn't know what the heck you guys are saying. I am not the weird one. Jury's still out on that one. Although most people around my age did know what these slang terms meant, I was able to find solace in the fact that there are several other generations out there who I can empathize with because we have no idea what the heck y'all are talking about. Now it's time for me to get back to scrolling. And yep, endgame spoiled.